All right. Josh, thanks for agreeing to interview today.
Glad to be here.
I wanted to ask you a few questions, and you and I have talked about this before, but tell me a little bit about why you decided to use your real estate license in the first place.
Well, to be honest, I just want to make some extra cash on the side. It was just a way of maybe selling 2 or 3 houses a year. That was the original plan, just some extra cash.
Right, and you had another job that you were doing
I
at the
did.
same time?
I was a health fitness specialist. I worked for a therapist in West Monroe, and business was okay, but I was looking for a way to generate some extra income.
Right. So how did it work when you were got your license, you're trying to sell real estate, and then you have another full-time job at the same time?
Well, the cool thing where I was at was that I could talk on the phone and work with patients at the same time. There were some times that I couldn't, but for the most part, I had a pretty flexible schedule. So I could be working with a knee patient or an ankle patient and also be on the phone answering questions.
Right.
There were limitations, obviously, but I was able to do some real estate while I was in the position.
Right. So how long did you have your real estate business and your other full-time job? How long?
2 or 3 months.
Really? Okay.
2 or 3 months.
So tell me about your first 9 months in the business. What was that like?
Well, the first 9 months, after I decided to go full-time in real estate, some of the deals.
When?
Let's see, that was 2013, so we're looking at November of 2013.
Okay.
We had several deals that were in the process of closing. My first deal took 75 days to close after an accepted contract, so it was a long way out. We had some struggles with really generating the amount of business we would need to replace the job, but I decided to go ahead and take the plunge anyway. And so for the first 9 months, it was really pretty stressful trying to make sure that I made enough to take care of my family and replace the income from my full-time job.
Yeah. So how did you hang in there? I mean, that's pretty risky and stressful.
It was tough. Thankfully, I say thankfully, the job I had at the time, I was only making about $25,000 a year. So replicating that income wasn't that big of a task. And so the way I stuck in there was I truly believed that over time I was going to do better and better. That if I made $20,000 my first year, I thought I'd make $40 my second year. I thought I'd make $60 my third year. I thought that I would continue to go up for the next 3 or 4 years, and so I knew that everything that I did would pay off.
Right. So you eventually decided to quit and then at what point did your business start to change?
I would say I'm actually about 9 months into my first year. We were coming up on the first spring of my career, and several things began to happen. I'm very learning based. So I had been reading, several books on real estate, and I really began to identify some of my strengths and weaknesses, some of the areas of my business needed to improve, and I started to think strategically about a way that I could really make everything grow faster, and so. At the 9-month mark, business began to grow very rapidly. My wife got her license, and really business quadrupled the next month after she got licensed, and it's really hadn't slowed down since.
Yeah. So tell me about what's your most dollar productive system you have in place right now?
The most dollar productive system that we have is database marketing. The people that we know, marketing to them regularly throughout the year. We turned in a business overview a couple weeks ago, and 75% of our business came from marketing to our database.
Really?
And cost-wise, it was one of the lower costs.
So what are you doing to market to your database?
So we build good content, whether that be in a blog post or in a video blog or just something that gives good information about the market in general, and we send that out to our database about 2 times a month, and we track who watches those videos, and we call them, and we check in with them to see if there's anything else we can do for them. We tell them we're glad they watched the video, we're glad they read the blog, and we just wanted to reach out to see if they had any questions, and that usually generates several deals, at least several leads a month. Not necessarily immediate leads, but it consistently brings people to the forefront who are thinking about buying or selling.
Wow. So what do you use to find out if they watched it or not?
There's a click and open report. If you get, there are several different resources out there, Constant Contact or MailChimp, where they can actually show you a click and open report. They'll show you who opened the email, who clicked the images on the email, and just kind of gives you a rundown of the responses.
That's impressive. So I know one thing that you've done to increase your business or change your business or grow it is you hired a coach. Can you tell me a little bit about what that's like, how that's affected you?
Hiring the coach, it helped me think about my business in different ways. It brought to light looking at the business from where you're trying to go and realizing the areas you need to grow in order to be the kind of business you want to be next year. So it forces you to think about, even though something may be working now, it's only working because your business is not thriving. If it started to thrive, these areas would not work. So it forces you to start putting in place systems and things that will be able to sustain business when it really picks up. We probably could have done more business this year in the spring had we had better systems, but we didn't, and so we weren't able to maintain the large level of leads that we had coming in and all the business that we had. So the coach has forced us to think about not only business relationships, but systems that are fit for where we're going in the future. That's been one of the big things.
Yeah. So could you do what you're doing right now without a system?
No, it could not. No, absolutely not.
What would it look like if you didn't have one?
It would be complete chaos every day. Everything we do has been put into a system, and it allows us to do a lot more things that we normally couldn't. From follow-up calls to sending out periodic emails to checking on homes. I mean, everything we do is systematized.
So can you walk me through like your average day? You wake up and then what happens?
Okay, so we wake up. I tend to wake up pretty early. We just had a third child, but normally we get up pretty early. Me and my wife. We read a little bit. We read the Bible. We talk. She homeschools, so we go over some things that she's going to do for the day. And I'm usually trying to head to work by 7:30. In the office at 8 o'clock, I am looking at all of my scheduled follow-ups. So any given day, I'm going to call anywhere from 15 to 30 people that are thinking about selling in the next 12 months. I've talked to them in the past. I'm following up with them. Just talking about them, checking in, see if their plans are still in place. I do that for about an hour and a half. At 9:30, it's time to really start generating new leads. So we're going to do circle prospecting. I may put in some plans to go and door knock a neighborhood. Most of the time in the office, just calling around different neighborhoods. That would be the majority of the time. And then 11 o'clock, I'm cleaning up everything, all the information. I've got notes written everywhere, so I'm getting everything put into the database. I'm making sure that everybody that I've talked to, I have put the information in from talking to them, and I've got follow-ups written out for when I'm going to call them next. So I spend the last hour doing that. And really, after 12 o'clock, my work day is over. At that point, it's just about if I have appointments set, if I have showings to go on, or listing appointments. So if I have appointments, obviously I stay at work. If not, I kind of dial it back some and just kind of take it a little slower.
How many people get to be off at noon?
Not many. Yeah, and really during the busy season, I work a lot, during the afternoon, so because we have a lot of appointments. But in this season, like this, after 12, I'm pretty much off.
Yeah. So what are you reading right now? You said you like to read a lot.
Reading several things. I'm really trying to learn more about internet marketing. I think digital technology marketing, I think, is where everything's headed. So as you probably know, Keller Williams is switching over to Playster for our sites. So I'm learning about Playster. I'm learning about SEO and search engine optimization, and just ways to build a website that can be helpful for the community. I want something that's really, really helpful, intuitive, that not only for my clients, but for anybody to use. So we're really focusing on that over the holidays.
Yeah. One of the things I see around our office and any office is a lot of agents, like they run around kind of ragged. you know, and they're kind of like a cork on the water, you know, and it doesn't sound like you're like that. What's different?
No, well, we decided to be intentional with how we're going to use our time, and what we decided early on was that if we're going to spend an hour working, we want to spend it in a way that we can maximize every aspect of that hour. So if we talk to 3 people that gave us some information about their plans, we want to make sure that we keep up with those 3 people for the next 50 years. We don't ever want to forget about them. And so what that's caused us to do is it's forced us to be regimented and scheduled with what we do. So if we talk to someone, we want to make sure we get their information into our system so that we can follow up with them again later. And if you do that, then you always have a set thing to do. You never have to wonder about what you need to do because it's always put in place. And that's been our commitment, is really to maximize, if we're going to spend the time, to make sure that we don't lose or track of the work we've done in the past. So I think that's really the key for us.
Yeah, that's impressive. So looking back on when you first started, what would you do differently if you knew what you know now? What would you do differently in the beginning?
That's a tough question. Looking back, the pressure that being in quitting my job and going to real estate that it put on my family, I would never want to do that again. But the pressure that it put on me forced me to grow at a pace that was much more rapid than it would have been otherwise. So really, I wouldn't want to go back and change much. If there was one thing I would want to change, it would be everybody that I talked to. If I could have gotten all their information and had a system for following up with them, I know that there would be 30 or 40 people that I would be in contact with today that I'm not.
Wow.
And that's a big difference in real estate. If you get 30 or 40 people, I lost track of them one way or another. Whether it be by losing their email or not getting an email or putting them in a place, like on a piece of paper in a notebook that I don't know where it's at anymore. Sticky notes, losing them. So I just didn't have a good system for tracking, keeping track of all that.
So if you were talking with a brand new agent that wanted to build a business, what's the best advice you would give them?
My number one thing would be to understand the database. Understand what a database is. I know there's all kinds of ways to generate money, but the thought of going out and spending 8 hours generating leads and then not having a way of keeping track with those leads you generated just irks me. So I would tell new agents, make sure you have a way of keeping track with everybody you talk to. Everybody you talk to, you get their phone number, have a way of making sure you call them at a certain time, periodically, strategically, and you do it often, and you have a set way of doing it. Because if you go out and you do all this work, and then you don't have that system in place, you end up losing half of it.
It's kind of like living in a colander. You know, everything goes in and then it goes right back out.
Right.
You've done nothing. Your work's.
You did the work, but you didn't have a way of keeping it. You let it slip through your fingers, and that's just. Especially early on in the business, you don't have enough leads to lose. So you need to be able to keep all of them that you possibly can. So make sure you get it set up to where you have something that you go to every day that you look at. Make sure you get their information there so that you constantly, they're on your mind constantly and you never forget about them.
You know, another thing about agents that are top producers, you know, once you get to around 30 transactions in a year, you're starting to max out and you can't go any further. What would you tell an agent who is doing a pretty good business and really can't grow anymore because they're limited in their time?
I would challenge them to think about the way their business is operating, doing those 30 transactions. Think about the way that they're getting those transactions, or the way that they're getting those people to work with. I really believe that if they were to systematize those 30 transactions, that it would cut their time in half of what it would take to do it. If you have a check sheet of everything you have to do for a listing, if you have it all laid out, it's no longer as stressful because you don't go to the house and forget the lockbox at home. You don't go to the house and forget your sign. You don't do that. You don't get the listing and forget to get the property disclosures. All of that takes more and more time. If you handle everything right each step of the way, the systems you have in place would allow you to double that with the same amount of time. And beyond that, if once you have the systems in place, if you want to hire an admin, it's easy for that admin to come in and follow those systems. And then you could hire a part-time person to come in and help you with your business. And then you could really quadruple your business at that point. I would challenge someone who's doing 30 and who's maxed out to look at the systems they're using and find out where they're wasting time. If they're wasting time in several places, they could really tie things down and have a lot more free time.
So where did you learn? How did you figure this out? Where did you learn how to do all that?
I read a lot. So I read anywhere from 40 to 50 books a year. And so I read stuff that's all over the place, whether it be time management, productivity, real estate, just really everything. So I pull from all sorts of sources on how to manage those things. And I think it's all in MREA, Gary Keller's book. I mean, he has everything there. You have to build from it, but I think reading it and trying to understand what he's telling you in the book.
How many times have you read that?
6 times. The last time I read it was the end of last year or beginning of this year, and I really kind of been implementing.
So a lot of people would say, why in the world would you read a book 6 times?
You gotta. I could read it more. The reason is because reading it and then implementing it are 2 different things. And trying to implement a book of that nature, it requires a lot of time. If you understand that book and implement it, then you're a millionaire. That's the deal. So if you're not a millionaire yet, you haven't gotten it. So you have to understand that what he's telling you to do is he's not just giving you information and knowledge. He's giving you a business plan to implement and put into practice. And it's, your business can only grow so much at one time. So you have to read the book in phases. Some of the stuff is irrelevant for me because I'm not where I need to be to put it into place.
So what about from here? What's your plans for your business from here?
Right now, the plan is really to get our business at a consistently 50 transactions a year. First step. We got to get to 50 transactions a year, and we need to do that consistently. That's the first step. The next step from there is really just thinking strategically about population sizes, thinking about expansion, thinking about the systems that I've built a lot of them are a little bit too big for this area. So I'm having to try to deal with the challenges of having a population size of Ouachita Parish and having systems that could really generate and sustain in a quadruple the size. 300,000 population would be more fit for what I have. So we're just looking at different options with expansions and having partnerships with people in different areas. The immediate goal, we talked to several people, my coach included, and we really just need to get 50 transactions a year set here. We need to be able to do that here. And the challenges that poses to us, once we overcome them, we'll be really primed for taking it to the next level.
Yeah, good. Anything that I didn't ask that you'd like to add?
Not really. I think that covers everything. I think it's important for people to understand real estate's a long-term business. You're trying to build a strong pipeline, and it's learning-based. The way things are going with technology and with businesses growing and going out of business, you have to be committed to learning. You have to be committed to learning because what was good 3 years ago may be completely useless today. 3 years ago, Craigslist would have made you a lot of money, and today it's absolutely worthless. So you have to stay on top of things, and that means you have to read. You have to be willing to put in the time. So if you're willing to do that, I think that's really the key.
Rob, one last question. How many hours a week do you put into your business?
I put in a lot more than most people realize, and the reason is because there's so much time that I put that is 30 minutes here on the couch, reading a book here before I go to sleep. All in all, I'm probably 75 hours a week. I'm putting in a lot of time, and it's just from reading, writing, blogging, videos, working with actual people, and listing homes and selling homes. I spend a lot of time, and I do expect that to change. I do expect to scale back a good deal.
Probably in the building phase.
Right. I'm just getting started. I think first 3 years are really considered a startup, and so I haven't even hit year 3 yet. So I'm still building the basic components of the business.
Okay. All right, well, thanks so much for
Thank you.
doing this.
Glad
I
to do it.
appreciate it.